Since we've been working from home, many of us have been sitting for even longer periods than when we were at work. There are two reasons for that. Reason number one is that we are less interrupted by colleagues, by meetings, and so on. Reason number two is that many of us tend to work on the time that they were using to go to work, yeah? So instead of working for 8 hours, traveling 1 hour forth, 1 hour back, we tend to work 10 hours. In this video, I'd like to show you how we can stand more when we are working at home, even if we don't have a sit-stand desk, yeah? And I will split this in three parts. One is, why do we need to stand? Two is, how often do we need to stand? Three is, how can we stand more? So first of all, why do we need to stand more? Well, there are, say, three reasons you could cite. Reason number one is that the more we sit, the more we slouch. And that will have an impact both on the lower back, especially the discs, but not only, and on the neck and shoulder area, because the shoulders tend to go round and the head tends to go forward. So this is, say, the musculoskeletal reason. There's another reason, which is total amount of physical activity. The more we sit, the less we move, and the bigger the risk that we get overweight. The third argument is the cardiovascular argument, and this one is a tricky one because some studies have concluded, or some media have concluded, that sitting is the new smoking. Well, careful with that. The total sitting time is associated with an increase in the cardiovascular risk, not the sitting time at work. So say if you sit a lot at work and you sit a lot at home on the couch and everything, then you increase the risk. But if you sit a lot at work and next to that you move a lot in your private time, well, let's say it's not ideal, but it doesn't mean that your cardiovascular risk will be increased. Okay, let's now focus on the when or the how often. Well, we need to stand at least 2 times per hour. The reason for that is that after 30 minutes, we will observe a compression in your lower back, actually probably 25 minutes even for most of us, even if you sit well using fully your lumbar support. So to avoid this, say, compression of the lower back, we want to stand at least every 25 to 30 minutes. Now, how long in total should we stand versus sit? Well, you have different studies, but basically the usual recommendation is between a 1-to-1 ratio and 2/3 sitting, 1/3 standing. So, I mean, at least if you have an 8-hour working day, and now I'm talking about only your working time, I think the minimum is to stand for 2.5 hours per day. Okay? And next to that, in your personal private time, in your hobbies, you need to be physically active, and that will of course include a lot of standing, but more than that, a lot of walking, jogging, bending down, whatever you do. Now, last point, how should we stand if we don't have a sit-stand desk? Well, I'm known to be a non-materialistic ergonomist, i.e. my only job is to make you autonomous. If you have the cash to buy a sit-stand desk, of course it's a cool tool and that will have a number of advantages. One of them is that you can stand from time to time. The other one of them is that you can very finely adjust the sitting height because it's an electric desk, and that means that you and your spouse will be able to both sit at a comfortable level, maybe even your children if they are teenagers, not if they are 6, 7, but if they are, say, 12, 14, 15, they could. Now, I don't believe that anyone will use the height adjustment mechanism every 25 minutes, 25 minutes to go up, 25 minutes to go down. This is just not realistic. So you have to consider the sit-stand desk as just one tool in your toolbox that will help you to alternate between standing and sitting. But there are other tools for that. And there, the key, I don't think is really the timer of your phone or the egg cooker to think of standing, because I mean it will always come at the wrong moment and you will just snooze it and see it's going to be annoying and stressful. I think that the key is much more to say anchor the fact of standing to things that you do anyway at least twice an hour. Let me take an example. Basically, when you have a Zoom meeting, unless you take the minutes, if it's just participating to the Zoom, like listening, talking, etc., you do not need to sit to do that. You can very much stand during your Zoom meeting. Therefore, Zoom meetings are an activity that we do sitting much more out of a habit than out of a biomechanical necessity. And there are many more like this, talking over the phone, talking to your spouse or to your colleague if you're at work, taking a coffee, reading a newspaper even, So basically the idea is that you list all these activities which you carry out sitting more than standing because of a habit more than out of a necessity, and you make sure that in this list, there's enough material for you to say stand at least twice an hour. So you need these interruptions. The list will not typically be the same if your phone rings all the time or if it rings every second day. But basically, this is the idea. You need to take the habit to do certain things standing rather than think of standing. Yeah, and if it becomes your new way of working, that Zoom is standing, phone calls is standing, coffee is standing, well, automatically you will have this 1-to-1 ratio between sitting and standing without ever thinking of standing.